Welcome to the Gridiron Expert. I'm Connor Hibbett. Up next, we have Zach Fox, who's going to be discussing Texas Tech football with us and the outlook for the 2025 season. As we all know, the Texas Tech Red Raiders have been one of the more discussed teams entering 2025. They got a bunch of transfers, so we will get into that here in a second. But Zach, before we get going into the roster for Texas Tech, please discuss with us where our viewers can find your content and then your affiliation with the Red Raiders.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hi everyone, and we are excited to be here with Connor as well. So exciting times here for Tech, and you can follow all the action with me with KCBD News Channel 11 here in Lubbock. I'm also active on Facebook and X. Those are our two main platforms there that we are constantly distributing all sorts of behind the scenes content, all those interviews, everything leading up to what should be a fantastic football season.
And for those wondering why Zach's name is showing Haley, he
Oh,
is currently using his wife's computer right
right,
now.
and she hasn't fixed it to where it's Haley Fox now. So I'm just Haley Kinnemer for this one. So
All right. Well, welcome to the show, Haley. We're glad to have you
yeah,
on.
appreciate it. Yeah, great to be here. Zach will be here momentarily.
So with the Red Raiders last year, so we all remember the hype with 2023. They were a senior laden team. They ended 2022 playing really well, and then 2023 they didn't quite live up to a lot of their expectation. And so entering last season, they had some new players, but there was still a lot of excitement. And so it's like every odd year we have a little bit more excitement with Texas Tech. And last year, as we remember, the offense was great as it normally is. Defensively, they had a lot of new players stepping into the fold, and they had some ups and downs. And so now, Texas Tech, a lot of new players defensively again, but a lot of transfers this time. Not so much as many youngsters as they had last year. So we'll get to the defense here in a second, but offensively, what is the expectation this year? And we'll start in the quarterback room. Is Morton healthy? When is he expected back? What's the upside here?
Yeah, I mean he's right now. I believe he's throwing out in Florida. He has a camp that he's out there with several other quarterbacks from around the nation that is there in a camp, just kind of getting ready for the season, getting those reps right now. Yeah, so I mean he technically he had been needing that surgery for a little bit now. He probably could have played the bowl game, but he knew that this was going to take some time to be able to heal, and so he went ahead and had that surgery over the offseason. And talking with Coach McGuire, and this has given a great opportunity for some of those backup quarterbacks as well, including Will Hammond, who started the bowl game last year against Arkansas. It's an opportunity for all of those guys to be able to have those QB1 reps, play with the ones and whatnot. And so that's really what we saw leading up to the spring game. Baron Morton, he's just kind of there and being a voice and being able to critique the other quarterbacks and all that as well, with all of his seniority now as he enters his senior year and all the knowledge that he's kind of gathered for a little bit now. But he will be 100% ready to go for game one. Like I said, he's probably having reps right now in Florida, and he'll be ready to, for fall practice here soon, and be ready to go for year one or for his final year, but for this week. And the passing game is what's going to be different this year. Is that you have Mac Leftwich come over as the new offensive coordinator as Zach Kidley is gone. He took the head coaching job at FAU, and one of the main concerns, especially for the fans, and we saw nearly every week on all of our comments, why are we doing so many screen passes, and just kind of did away a little bit with the vertical passing game. But when you also have Taj Brooks in the backfield, it's always good just to hand it off to Taj Brooks. But fans were wanting to go back to the vertical passing. There were so many passes out wide, and trying to get things done there, outside the numbers. And one thing that Coach Leftwich mentioned very early on is that we're going to change that. We are going to take more shots downfield, and so we'll see what that entails for this year, and that'll be more to the what Texas Tech fans are used to, and that is the vertical pass game with the air raid. And but with Taj Brooks gone, we'll see what how that affects as far as the running back room. You have some young guys there. Along with Quentin Joyner, who comes over from USC, but you just needed more of a senior guy in that locker room, and so that's why he came over. But Big things here in the for the Texas Tech offense, which really starts with the passing game.
And I was going to ask you about that running game. Is Joyner expected to be the starter, the USC transfer, or is it going to be the second or third string running backs from last year?
We'll see. I think it's going to be those trio. I think they're not going to rely on one guy. I think they're going to kind of move some guys around. Joyner with what he does in the passing game and being able to be a passing, a receiving threat as well. I think that's going to be big. So I definitely going to see a lot of playing time from him. But Cameron Dickey and Jacoby Williams, they had some sparks last year. Jacoby Williams, I mean, he broke off a long touchdown run last year, especially in the bowl game. He had one against North Texas earlier in the year. So they've showed those sparks there, but they were also two true freshmen last year
Yeah.
paired up with a senior like Taj Brooks. Like you're not going to get that many, that much playing time, I guess. So we'll just kind of see as now the burden, rest on their shoulders. Now we'll see how they do with that. But talking with Coach Perry, who was the running backs coach. Now he's the full-time special teams coordinator. But he thinks that this is going to be more of a quicker style of running game, that they can hit those holes quick and be able to kind of have those explosive plays. Taj, he was definitely built for those 4th and 1 packages and whatnot, but he'd be able to just kind of just run guys over. These guys are a little bit smaller. Cam Dickey is bigger than Jacoby, so maybe he can do some of that stuff. But this is mostly going to be more of an explosive run game rather than just a ground and pound.
Yeah, because Taj Brooks was like your typical bell cow running back. I mean, he
Yeah.
was perfect for that ideal running back there. In the receiving game, so you mentioned how Texas Tech's going to be looking to throw the ball more downfield this year and having more of those vertical threats, so to speak. So Josh Kelly was the number one threat last year. Like he was the alpha in the
Mhm.
receiving room. He moves on, and it looks like y'all are returning Caleb Douglas, Coy Eakin. They were second and third in the receiving production a season ago. And then y'all bring in, is it Reggie Virgil?
Virgil, yeah, Reggie Virgil,
Virgil
yeah.
from Miami of Ohio. Yeah, he had 41 receptions last year for 815 yards, 18 and a half yards. Uh, is it per catch? Am I reading that right here?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so is this receiving room better than last year, you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're just as stacked. Yeah, I mean, obviously Josh Kelly did great things last year coming over from Washington State, and but now that he's gone, you're looking for Coy Aiken. As you mentioned, he has really stepped up coming over from Stephenville. He had a big target on his back after having that miraculous state championship game a few years ago, and he has done great things here for the Red Raiders. And I expect that he's going to be able to step up a little more, as will Caleb Douglas to be the ones and twos. Reggie Virgil, he will be back to start the season, but we haven't really seen too much of him because he has been nursing an injury. I believe it's an ankle injury, and so he didn't play the spring game or anything like that. And so we're just waiting to be able to see him, live action here in Lubbock. So. But as far as some of those other guys, Koyek and Caleb Douglas, things like that, and then even the tight end room, that's going to be huge, especially John Carlos Miller, who's coming back, and he had a great year last year, and now he's going to be coming back and probably looked at as one of the bigger leaders in that locker room this year. And so it's guys who are now stepping up to more of a leadership role. You're not looked at as the 2 or 3; they're expecting you to be the 1 or 2, and it's just a matter of seeing how these guys live up to those expectations.
And then you'll also bring in Terrence Carter from ULL in the tight end room. Uh,
Yeah.
so do you think that this is going to be, you'll have like 3 to 4 reliable guys, or are you expecting an alpha here?
But Tech they like to have those multiple people, and so I think this is something to where they can, utilize multiple guys, especially when it came to the tight end room, especially even last year. Jalen Conyers, John Carlos Miller, occasional Mason Tharp. It wasn't like one singular guy. Conyers, ended up getting a full head of steam last year. He started getting hot, so he played a little more. But like I said, with John Carlos Miller and all those guys, I really expect a full rotation here, and I expect Texas Tech to not go 100% on the pass. I expect a full, healthy blend of the run game, just because you found out how good you could be in the run game last year. Is it different personnel? Yes, but if you can have that blend of the run game, we all know that that's going to open up the pass game. And those tight ends for those run game scenarios are always going to be crucial for that. And so I expect to have all three of those guys to be able to kind of rotate.
Well, it looks like Texas Tech has a pretty established starting receiving core here. What do the backups look like in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, we'll just have to see. I mean, these guys have done really well so far. It's just hard when you just see them going up against Texas Tech every day. Um, you know, they're gonna have to step up in some spots. But you have some guys that you're able to lean back on as well in this receiving room to learn behind as well. And I think Barron has gotten a great relationship with those guys and be able to see what works best with which receiver. And I think that they're going to be able to do well with that this year. But when they're playing against Texas Tech every day, we'll just have to see because we all know that Texas Tech secondary has been rough, and so one guy could torch one day in practice, but compared to maybe a West Virginia defense or something at one point, you just don't know for sure. So we'll just have to see come especially week 3 when you take on Oregon State, a true good opponent. We'll just have to see by that point to see how some of those backups but to be honest, you'll probably see some of those backups the first 2 weeks because Tech's probably going to get out to a healthy lead, and then it's an opportunity to see some of those young guys be able to kind of make their mark.
With the offensive line, so last year they had their ups and downs. They were not as injury riddled, I don't think, as 2023 was. I remember offensive tackle kind of held them back in 2023. So they lose both of the left tackles that played the most,
Mm-hmm.
Dalton Merriman and then Ty Buchanan, and then the right tackle Caleb Rogers is
Yeah,
off
Johnny
as
Odell.
well. Yeah. Um so let's see. Right guard Davian Carter returns, as does their center Wilson. They hit the portal for replacements at tackle with Howard Sampson coming in from North Carolina, and then they also brought in a transfer from Miami of Ohio. How is the offensive line shaping up to be right now?
Yeah, that, and then you also have one more, recently with Cash Cleveland coming over from Colorado, and
That's
so
right. Yeah. Okay. That's
yeah, so you have another one there. O line, they really wanted to beef up there, and I think they did a really good job last year with protecting Baron Morton. That's been one of the main things with Texas Tech as of late is keeping your quarterback healthy,
yeah.
and especially when it came back to Tyler Shuck. And
Yeah.
but now, Baron last year he had a full year of being healthy. Like I said, I mean his decision to be able to do the shoulder surgery was for the bowl game. But I mean, he probably could have played the bowl game, but he's one to go and get it over with and allow Will Hammond to get some reps. But other than that, they had a full healthy year this year when it came to the quarterback room, and that was vital. And so, there's got to be good vibes right now in that offensive line room, especially now that you bring in some other guys as well. And now you have a new, you have a new coach out there as well in Clay McGuire, and he's really wanted to kind of set a tone here with this group that they can be dominant and one of the most dominant in the Big 12. And and that's going to start once again with the run game as well. If you can get the run game going with the guys up front, that's going to open up the pass game. So I think they've done really well with adding some other guys as well to accompany some key veteran presence that they already have, and that they'd be able to learn behind like Caleb Rogers and things like that who have been there from the beginning.
Yeah, the offensive line play was certainly better this past season than it was in previous years, and I think that kind of goes back to the offensive tackles, and a lot of production leaves there. So we'll see how they pick things up this coming fall. It'll be interesting to see how that turns out. So moving over to the defense. So the defensive line, like when you talk about Texas Tech in the transfer portal this year, I think you have to start with the defensive line. I mean, think about listen to all these guys that they brought in. So they brought in Skylar Gill Howard from Northern Illinois. He had 35 tackles last year, 14 hurries, 5 sacks, 28 stops. Lee Hunter from UCF, 23 tackles, 19 hurries, 1 sack, 20 stops. They got a Georgia Tech transfer, 22 hurries, 3 sacks. And then Anthony Holmes from Houston, 25 tackles, 3 sacks. What does this unit look like in your like what's the upside to this group? Do you think that the defensive line could be the most improved unit on the field?
Absolutely. And Sheil Wood, he has done a great job since becoming now the defensive coordinator here for Tech. And you can just tell that they are quick and big men. Let's just say that. When we saw it in the spring game, the defense dominated. They and this is kind of a rare thing. So you have those three spring games and whatnot, and the offense had one great day apparently, according to coaches. The offense dominated only one of those spring games. It was the defense who really be able to kind of stifle this offense, and that is pretty rare when it comes to Texas Tech standards as of late. And so another name, David Bailey, coming over from Stanford. At the
That's
time,
right,
he
yeah.
was the number one, guy in the transfer portal. He was able to leave 30 days early due to his head coach being fired, but he was the number one recruit in the portal at that time, and now he gets to come over from Stanford, and man, they have really beefed up that defensive front. And then you have, they're in that linebacker room, who's the quarterback of it all, and Jacob Rodriguez. And Jacob Rodriguez, I mean, he has been very instrumental these last couple of years defensively. But now that you have a defensive front who can vouch for that as well now, we'll see how, and Tech was very good last year and even the year before with bending and not breaking. We saw that against Iowa State as well, where teams were able to kind of march down the field a little bit, but especially once it got down inside the 20, not many teams were allowed to score sometimes. I mean, Tech was able to kind of put up a brick wall at that point and be able to not break at the end. And so, perhaps now they're hopefully entering some scenarios where they're not having to bend so much and they can and maybe get out earlier in drives. But they have definitely gotten quicker and bigger there on that defensive front.
And you mentioned the linebacker room there briefly. Everybody is back from my notes. It looks like literally every single player from last year's room returns, starting with Rodriguez. This is the first position group that I've previewed so far that I think everyone returns. I don't think I've previewed a team yet with a position group that returns everyone from last season. So this is very noteworthy for Texas Tech. So there looks like
Especially in this day and age of college football. So
yeah, yeah, no kidding there. So the depth looks like it's there for the front six, front seven for both the linebackers and the defensive line. So do you think that this can go from like last year, a little bit of an unknown up and down, had their ups and downs to like this is a flat out strength for Texas Tech looking at their defensive front seven?
yeah, and having yeah, I mean it's going to be those front seven that's going to lead. There are still some question marks when it comes to the secondary, and so we'll see how that I mean, because they had a lot of young guys last year. They had some
Yeah.
injuries as well, but they had a lot of young guys in the secondary. But as far as those front seven, they're going to lean on that. And so I believe they're going to be able to stop the run game a ton this year. It's just going to come down to the passing game at that point. The vertical deep threat the teams are going to want to try and expose once again. But as far as the guys up front, I'm not gonna foresee probably too many big rushing performances from some teams, like we probably would have seen in the past.
So moving on to the secondary here. So let's see. All right. Morin Horn returns at corner. Chapman Lewis returns at his free safety spot. Were they both freshmen last year?
Yeah, so they were on the, especially Chapman Lewis, but he had some good playing time last year. Chapman did, and he came up big in some spots, and showed that how good this team probably can be here in the future. It's just getting those reps early on, and he came up big last year as well. CJ Baskerville, he was there, and he really seniored that group last year. He had some big interceptions, things like that, but obviously he's gone now, and so now it's just a time for this group to be able to stand up, and we'll see what Coach Wood and the guys have put together.
So in conclusion here with Texas Tech, I know, when we first started this video, we were discussing the Texas Tech Red Raiders being one of the more talked about teams
Mm-hmm.
in college football for this year, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers are going to want to know, okay, is the hype for Texas Tech in 2025 legit? Zach, what do you think? Do you think that this team can play, potentially win a Big 12 championship and be therefore a dark horse to make the college football playoff? Do you believe the hype?
We'll see. I mean, they definitely have put their money where their mouth is. They have definitely fully invested in this team. Joey has proven that he can win with some lesser guys. Now you have some bigger guys and big transfer portal additions. You know, this is 21 additions just in the transfer portal. I mean, it is crazy the amount of intake that this group has had just over one offseason. And so with all of this talent now, you know, it's probably going to be a little bit different for Joey having this many skilled guys in one room here. And so we'll see. You know, Tech, they have a decent schedule, especially from time to time. You know, right after having Oregon State, then you start Big 12 play on the road at Utah. I mean, those are some two big games kind of right off the bat, week 3 and week 4. Before then you have kind of an early bye week right after that Utah game. But then, then you take on one big game that you just cannot win in recent history is at Kansas State there in Manhattan. Texas Tech just cannot win there in Manhattan. And so you go there to Manhattan this year. Then you host BYU, who's another one that everybody's talking about with transfer portal additions and that they can do big things this year is BYU. You host BYU this year. And so you play some of those bigger teams. You go to Tempe to take on Arizona State.
Yep.
So you have the games that you need to win to be able to prove that you can get back to the Big 12 champion, or to finally get to the Big 12 championship game. They're not going to have a cupcake schedule, but to be honest, with all of this talent that you have, you'd rather go up against some of the big teams who was able to win it last year and things like that. Go through this gauntlet of a schedule from at times this upcoming year, and then prove to everyone that not only did you get to the Big 12 championship game, but you earned your way there. And then we'll just see if they can kind of get it done from there and potentially get a playoff spot.
So in the Big 12, as you know, there's not a ton of difference among most of the teams. It's
Mm-hmm.
probably going to be coming down to the fourth quarter, down to the wire. There's going to be a lot of one-score games. And in one-score games, it always helps to have effective special teams. And I remember a tweet from you
Yep.
following the spring game. The special teams had some questions. Now, what I will say is we had some interesting weather in the state of Texas. We had an interesting front come through. We actually had some tornadoes just west of Weatherford, Texas that day. So maybe the wind, the weather was a factor here. But how do the special teams look in your opinion right now?
Yeah, we like to blame that on that out here in West Texas. The West Texas wind got him, and there was
Yeah,
dust in his eye or whatever. Um, you know, that was an early talking point of Coach Perry earlier in the spring practice was, hey, how's the special teams group doing? Gino Garcia obviously is no longer there. How's it looking? And he kind of had a long pause for a sec, and he's like, it's good days and bad days. He goes, they can hit their 50 yarders, and then they'll miss their 30 yarders. I mean, it's crazy just kind of how it's like that. But you have two new guys who are trying to adapt, and then in the spring game, I believe what it was 1 for 6,
that
and
sounds
they
right.
were
Yeah.
they were I believe 0 for, or it might have been 1 for 7 because they might have gone 0 for 5 or whatever at one point before they hit their first one. And a couple of those were from distance from 45 plus, but then some were chippies, almost extra point range here, and just missing them. And so and for that day, it was not that windy. And so they're going to be in some tougher situations. So yeah, special teams room, that is going to be one to really keep an eye on, because the last time that you really had an issue was the start of the 23 season at Wyoming, when
Oh
Gino
yeah.
Garcia, I believe he missed 3 field goals that game, and you could have won it. And then but after that game, he really started to progress. He had a game-winning field goal at Kansas, and then he had a really good year last year. He was really solid. I believe he only had like 1 or 2 misses the entire year. So really good year last year. So we'll just have to see with some of these younger guys who are coming in here, and it's been, you can tell it's a little bit stressful for Coach Perry in that locker room, but he is optimistic that these guys, with the amount of time that they have to prepare for week 1, they have a long time from them. He just kind of hopes that by that point they've gotten used to this area and they can finally start putting balls through the uprights.
Well, it'll be very interesting to see how the Red Raiders manage special teams because we know we're going to be in some close games in the Big 12, but it's an all-in type of year. I'm putting more stress towards I'm putting the pressure on Texas
Um,
Tech here.
no,
But top five in returning production, you bring in a lot of transfers, so it'll be a fun season in Lubbock.
yeah, absolutely. And, I think this is a big year for Joey McGuire. Everybody loves him out here, and, he can get you fired up and ready to go. And we know how good he is in the month of November, but can he do it early on? And that road game at Utah, that is, I think, is going to be one of the big ones at the beginning of the year to be able to tell you how good is this team really, because road games have been horrible for Texas Tech throughout his tenure so far. Winning on the road has been an issue, and now you head on the road to start off Big 12 play against the Utes, and so we'll see how that goes. But I think there's a little more pressure on Joey this year. I'm not going to say in any means that he's on a hot seat because he has done so well. But with as far as the investors, and you put in all this money, and when it comes to the transfer portal and things like that, how do you perform? And if you potentially do less, if it's another 8-4 year, we'll see if that amount of money per year is still coming in next year. So we'll see. I just think there's a little more pressure on him this year, not as much as some coaches in the league, but I think there's a little more on him this year.
Well, Zach or Haley, really good job today, and we appreciate you being on the show.
Appreciate it, man.